everyone, and welcome back to Geeks Not Nerds Live. It's the 6th round of this year's multi-topic extravaganza, and for the next hour, me and Eric and Rasco are going to answer your questions. We got a lot of pre-written questions still, of course, from the Geeks Not, or the announcement video for the multi-topic extravaganza, and we're also going to answer some of your live questions tonight. So if you are watching live, first of all, welcome. Thanks for being here. Have fun chatting with each other in the comments, and while you're chatting, feel free at any point to write down a question that you'd like us to answer live for you this very evening. Every 3 questions, we'll do a live question. This is round 6. We're going to do this for 8 weeks, and I'm asking that we don't get any more questions in the announcement video, please, because there's no way we get to all of them at this point. We're going to try to get to as many of the ones that we have right now as humanly possible. So if you have a question, try to ask it tonight, and Rasco will pick the best ones. And Rasco is the best at deciding what is best, and he will choose the best one, or the best ones, as we go along, and we'll knock these out lickety-split. Just me and Rasco and Eric tonight, because Steve broke himself, and he was not able to be with us this evening. He did that thing that guy does in The Nice Guys, where he punches through a window, and he got glass in his arm.
That's a lot of blood.
Now he's behind on things and wasn't able to make it tonight. So, Steve, if you happen to be watching, first of all, why are you watching this when you're supposed to? And does not want you to feel better, but me and Rasco, we care about you, buddy. We really do. We care about you. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started right away. We're gonna start answering your questions as lickety split as possible, and we all know what that means. That means if it's interesting, it's gonna go on a while. Here we go. The first question for this evening begins with Ryan Aldridge. This is an interesting question. He says, with the CW picking up another superhero show, how long do you expect that universe to exist? And
Supergirl,
that's what he's talking about, yeah. And when it ends, do you think it will end all at once or show by show? If so, this is like 3 questions. I said 1 question, okay? As of now, and there's also no quotes in this either. You're supposed to, if so, as of now, which show do you think will outlast the others, and why? That's interesting. It's another kind of blue book question. I feel like I'm supposed to write an essay, but let's start with Rasco, because Rasco is reviewing The Flash and getting his brain all blown up by that show. Rasco, what do you think? How long does this universe have legs?
I think that Supergirl might have the most time ahead of it to be kind of like an in show that people are watching and care about. Just because it's got the super in front of it. So people care about having something Superman related on TV. And so I think that most likely will last the longest. But it would be weird, though, to have if the shows end at different times. What happened? I haven't thought about if that would happen, if they would end them all on the same. Because obviously I don't think that they would have the same amount of seasons. I think they would kind of maybe just end them all at the same time, honestly. Besides Supergirl, that's the one where I can see if that's really popular for a long time, that could go on, and maybe Arrow and Flash could go away. I honestly don't really know, because I don't know if Arrow lasts more than 6 seasons, honestly.
Yeah, my thought on it is it's going to be like with anything else dependent on ratings. Legends of Tomorrow was almost canceled before it even started. It apparently cost so much to make. I'm a little surprised that it got into a 2nd season. And that's the show I could see getting canceled the earliest, just because I don't hear people say a lot of positive things about that show. On the other hand, that is a really good catch-all show for any characters that they decided to cancel their shows of. So if Arrow were to end, they could keep him around and put him in a show like Legends if they had their own Justice League or something, which honestly is kind of what Legends ought to be. I think at some point that should stop being a time travel show. I mean, it also needs better writers and needs to stop insulting my intelligence. But beyond all that, it'd be great if that show turned into just the Justice League of that world. And a Justice League led by Supergirl would be really cool. But I mean, she's not going to have her own show and also be able to do that. But yeah, Rasco, I'm not with you on that. I think shows will have to get to end and other shows continue. unless they're crazy and they try to keep Arrow in 10 seasons. But I mean, like, I don't know what you do with it that long, but then I don't know what we're doing with it now. So, you know, that show, like, it should naturally end at the end of season 5. That's almost definitely not what will happen with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see it cycling, right? Like, I could see shows ending and then those characters moving to other shows, especially since there's not quite a bit of precedent for that with Legends.
Do you?
I don't know if you have any opinion on this since you're not watching these shows, Eric. But...
I wouldn't be surprised if Supergirl doesn't make it past season 2. It wasn't getting good enough ratings on NBC, so they moved to CW, and now its budget's going to be slashed. I think there's a potential that show doesn't make it past this season.
I disagree, because if that was going to happen with anything, it would have been Legends. Like if they were able to keep Legends on the air, this is so weird. I just want to make eye contact with you. If they were able to keep Legends on the air, surely they can keep Supergirl on the air.
I don't know. We'll see. And there's a lot of speculation that this will be Arrow's last season because everyone seems to be done. Even the hardcore people seem to be done with it.
Seem to be kind of
so
done
we'll
with
see
it.
when the ratings come in, but
it needs to be done this year.
Yeah.
What's weird is
I think Flash
so often that
going.
hasn't affected the ratings. It's just complaints and reviews and stuff. So
well, but it seems like even the people that loved it now have turned on that show.
Well, you're right. It will be interesting to see if suddenly it has a ratings drop off, because I think it's been pretty consistent all the way through. Not that I've checked it, a lot.
Do you think that like Arrow stopped making the island stuff relevant so that they could like get everyone to forget that they had set up the 5 years of flashbacks so that like we could go on without the flashbacks after season 5 and it wouldn't be a big deal because they've become so irrelevant?
Yeah.
For the list, I guess.
Well, it's going to be really, because there was talk from the producers, I think, last year, unless I'm mistaken about this, that they were going to do fewer flashback things this year, even though they kind of set up another cliffhanger with the island stuff. And that's, even though I have not cared about the island stuff, and it's boring, and it would be kind of nice if it went away, that's so weird. We've
back on the island?
No, but we've, yes. Yeah,
okay.
In the flashbacks. But we've continued that same... We've continued
in China.
That same formula, that same structure, all the way through for 4 years. The 5th year, he's going to come back from the island, and that's going to be the season we don't do it as okay. But maybe they've learned their lesson, because Eric, it's gotten, like, since you've left, it's gotten even more preposterous. Like, the China stuff was weird, was silly enough, but like now, whenever we do island stuff, it's always super convenient, and for no good reason, whatever's going on in the island stuff completely informs what's going on in present day, and it's like this really convenient paralleling of years. And
I like, I mean, in season 1, I like that we set things up as if like he learned something on the island,
yeah,
and later we will find out where he learned it and how.
But now there was a weapon in the past, and now that weapon is and there was a bad guy in the past, and now that's the bad guy we're dealing with now. Like, that's where we're at now. Anyway,
it's Flash.
I think it's Flash. Yeah, and I think that's the show that naturally would have the most legs anyway.
Because he runs.
Yeah. But it's not a stretching joke, like that. Anyway,
Have the longest run time.
Next question comes from Danavision. My name is Daniel Carhunen, and I write independent comic books and graphic novels. I was wondering, how large is your creator-owned comic book collection compared to your corporate-owned licensed comic book collection? Oh, mine's like 4 or 5% to 95%, but his is significantly more than that.
I'd say mine's probably about 25%. Because some stuff that I would lump in with more indie stuff is things that have since become IPs, like Hellboy. Mm-hmm. Like, Hellboy's a creator property, but it's also a franchise at this point.
Yeah.
So,
and in multiple places.
If that stuff also counts, stuff like Hellboy, then I'd say probably about 25% of my collection is non-mainstream.
Because a lot of the closest I get, I mean, there are a couple of creator-owned things that I read, but and I've been getting into Vaughn lately. But a lot of the stuff that I would consider that I read that's indie, just because it's not big two, it's still licensed properties because it's IDW. It's like Star Trek and Ninja Turtles. Rasco, do you even collect comics?
No, not right now, at least. So yeah, I don't even know what my answer to that would be because there's no way. Like,
I don't even know what comic books are.
my answer to that. Are we talking about like the percentage of like indie versus? Is that what
In your
this is?
collection.
In your collection.
Oh, honestly,
what you
no
own.
idea. Then I wouldn't even. Very little stuff that I own would be indie.
I've never thought to ask Rasco if he bought comics.
Well, you see, I
Like the
have
film
bought
guy.
comics. It's just right now I'm not buying I'm not buying any current comics, and I haven't been for like a year or so. So, like when people ask me if I collect comics, I have comics that I have collected. I'm not a big collector though of any of a lot of things. Like I don't collect movies, even though I'm obsessed with movies. Like I don't collect those either. I've just never been like a huge collector.
Oh, okay.
Fraction has
Good to know.
Fraction has an ongoing. You should be reading Rasco. It's I don't remember what it's called, but it's about a murder on like a television set in the golden age of television.
That sounds actually really cool.
Yeah, I think you'd like it.
Our last question for this first round is from Greg Peck, and he asks, early in Batman and Robin, the Caped Crusader mentions Superman, who would have been incredibly useful during the climax with the frozen city. Any speculation on where he was or what he was up to?
I have an answer.
Okay, go ahead.
That's when he's gone for before Superman Returns.
Oh, yeah, if
He's
that were in the
off-world.
same universe. Yeah, that's good. Sure. That's as good of an explanation as I needed a moment to see if that was the Batman and Robin we were talking about. And then I was like, oh, he's
Frozen City.
actually asking about the logic of that film. Fantastic. That's a great question. I like Eric's answer. It's really good. Because, I mean, his heat vision could have solved that whole problem, like, real fast.
Yeah.
Rasco, give us a live question, please, sir.
Okay, this is from Barry Allen. Do you think that we will ever see
it's not.
Gotham? Yeah, it could be from Barry Allen. Do you think that we will ever see Gotham in the CW verse now that Metropolis is in it?
Boy, what a great question.
Gotham the city or Gotham the show?
No, the city. The
Okay.
city.
Yeah, it's got to be the city.
This is so up in the air at this point because of the fact that Gotham is a TV show, and because we have Batman, in movies right now. That used to be a problem for these shows, but we have Superman in Supergirl now. This is really unprecedented. So, Batman and Gotham are both theoretically possible. I kind of think somehow or rather DC will make sure that doesn't happen, just because of the two. He's so.
You could do Bloodhaven.
You can do what now?
Bloodhaven.
Oh, Bloodhaven.
Because the dot's over it, so it should be pronounced Bloodhaven.
Yeah, that's true.
Bloodhaven instead of Gotham.
But that is saying it out loud. Anyone knows what you're talking about.
Bloodhaven.
Stop. Yeah, that's fair. Well, and that Teen Titans show was supposed to happen.
It was oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Before that, there was a Raven show that was supposed to happen.
Right. Yeah, but that Teen Titans show was up in the air for a good long time, and it was announced the same week Supergirl was as a thing that was in development.
You're right. And wasn't it going to be on like TNT or something?
Yep, that was being developed for TNT, and for a good 6 or 8 months, I thought it was still being developed for TNT, and then at some point finally out that it wasn't, or that it fell off or something. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Rasco? Information to even know if that's a possibility?
Honestly, I think that if we saw that wouldn't. I think that they would wait to do that until they felt like they needed to do something like that to like bring people back to the show, maybe to like get them in like just get people excited again. But I mean, I feel like if they do it at a time when it wouldn't be for a story reason, it would just be kind of like, oh yeah, we should go to Gotham and do some Gotham stuff. So I don't know.
Well,
it's
and
possible.
they were going to do Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
So theoretically, we at least would have mentioned.
Technically, they kind of did Harley Quinn for a second. I mean, we got like a voice cameo.
Right. But then we stopped doing Suicide Squad entirely because that movie got announced.
According to them, they intended to make Harley part of the squad.
Yeah. Do the squad at all. since we've got Superman in the movies, I mean, I realize he's technically dead right now, but that won't be the case in a year. If that's okay, then like it seems like everything should kind of be up for grabs at this point. Like possibly. Like I just wonder what the logistics are and what the mandates are and what DC's logic is if they say, well, you can have Superman because it's a Supergirl show and we've let you say Superman and have it be a universe where he exists already. But you still can't have Batman. You still can't have Suicide Squad.
Well, after at the box office, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave it back to him.
It did okay though,
but it didn't do whatever they needed to
no, but neither did BVS, and like so I don't know. It's so weird. That's an unanswerable question right now. Mm-hmm. I would be surprised if we didn't start getting mentions of Batman though, even if they don't use him, or just some kind of a sense, even if they don't say his name, some kind of a sense that he's around. Especially if they rope in their Superman Supergirl universe in with their Arrow Flash universe.
They'll get around it by just saying that there was a Gotham and a Batman in their universe, but now they're over here, and somehow we can't see it now.
Because I mean that would be the easy way to get them in there suddenly. You just don't deal with whatever Bruce Wayne would have been in the Arrowverse, or do and have both, and that might be interesting. Have in the Arrow universe, there's a Bruce Wayne that never became Batman because Green Arrow is Batman. That'd be great. Do that, and then have the Batman from Supergirl's universe.
And they could have an actual evil Bruce Wayne, like Malcolm Merlyn, but this is actual evil Bruce Wayne. And in the Arrowverse, Bruce Wayne's a villain. That'd be really cool.
Well, no, because Gotham's in the same continuity, so Bruce Wayne's just a kid at this point.
No, it's not. Don't do that. And because people like to bring that up, and they want that to be a thing.
Oh no, it shouldn't.
And that doesn't make any sense at all because it's clearly completely out of time and more stylized and yeah.
Well, and unlike the rest of these shows, like Supergirl makes sense because it's still is it Kreisberg? Berlanti.
Yeah,
Berlanti. It's still Berlanti. Like
yeah,
that made
that's Fox. That's
sense.
A difficult merger to have. It would be difficult for those studios to sign papers and allow that to happen.
It would make more sense for Constantine to show up there.
Except it still wouldn't have made any sense for that to happen. Harry Charlin, do you think? Oh, you mean over at Fox?
Yeah, over at Gotham. It would make more sense for Constantine to show up at Gotham.
Why?
It would make more sense than in Arrow.
Oh, but I thought you just meant though because of like studios or because of.
Oh no! I just mean
some NBC versus
it would have
Fox
fit better with Gotham than with Arrow.
Well, no, but except that's a world that still looks like it's kind of in our present day. Like it's not out of time like that.
Yeah, you're right.
But I mean, I agree with you in the sense that their world is silly at this point. Harry Charlin, do you think TV will ever in quality or popularity? I think it arguably to some people already has. When you look at some streaming stuff, I think people are a lot more invested in a lot of ongoing TV shows that feel like 13-hour movies than they are in going to the movie theater.
I think Daredevil season 1 is the best superhero movie ever made.
Mm-hmm. I tend to agree, although I can't put it above Jessica Jones at this point.
Oh well, yeah, but I'd put both of them above Dark Knight.
They are fighting. They're fighting right now. Yeah, and these are fighting words for people, but at this point I would too. Just on story sophistication, if nothing else. And it's not fair to compare them, because if Nolan had 13 episodes to do a Batman show, it might be that good too.
Yeah, it's weird.
He's the movie guy.
I think as movies become, and I'm not saying that it's impossible to do like a fragmented, serialized like movie series, like that's not impossible. But I think with everything going for the cinematic route of like they're all little pieces of a grander story, it's kind of like blurring the divide between TV and movies. And I think that like TV will continue to get more popular if movies continue to go the cinematic universe route. If movies go back to being like this movie, it's a big, giant, grand event where you're going to go and this is like an epic presentation that you're going to be sucked into for 2 hours. If you go like that, because like that's kind of the philosophy that Tarantino has whenever he releases a movie. It's always like an event and you're like, oh, this is going to be a big movie. And if movies go back to trying to capture that sort of feeling and vibe and hype, then I think that it might balance out a little bit more. But I think that if movies keep going the cinematic universe route, then TV will become more popular because people will just become accustomed to like fragmented storytelling, I guess.
Well, and not even just cinematic universes. A lot of movies now, I mean, what is Prometheus?
Yeah.
Prometheus can't be judged at all. It's the pilot episode for a 5-film whatever that Ridley Scott's doing.
Yeah. And then Avatar is going to have like 4 sequels filmed like at once or something like that. And like,
yeah, I can't imagine any of those stand on their own.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's the exact same thing as movies want to be video games and video games want to be movies. And we now have this with movies and TV, except that the lines are blurred more than you can blur them with video games because that requires a controller. Like Rasko, I love your point that movies have to become an event again if we're going to have any separation. And I'm not even saying that necessarily has to be too much of a separation. I kind of am enjoying some of the blurred lines, except that there are enough movies that are just movies. But if we completely blurred the lines, you could still have that, right? Like you could have people that make a project that is like a TV movie, just meant to be seen in one sitting. You could still have that. But at what point do we stop thinking that we need to go see a thing on a large screen? At what point do people stop being taken in by the grand spectacle and the enjoyment of getting in your car and going to see something on a screen bigger than you can see it at home?
Mm-hmm.
At what point does Fathom Events start doing like Daredevil marathons?
Oh, that would
when does
be
that
cool.
happen?
That would
like
be really
people,
cool.
I'm sure, are like me, would love to see some of these Netflix shows on the big screen. I think they might have, maybe somebody's at some theaters done like the first episode or whatever. But really, like marathons that you watch over a couple of days at the theater, I think is a really, solid idea. Because we just watched the first episode of Luke Cage last night. By the way, let me quick plug. We're gonna do the spoiler cast for that not in 2 weeks, but in 3 weeks, so that Eric can be there. And we watched that last night. What would that look like on the big screen?
It looked great.
I mean, the production values are amazing.
It looked great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also watched the first episode of that yesterday, so I agree. Yeah, I don't know.
How about that? How about that soundtrack, Rasko?
What about it?
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. Okay, I thought you were gonna be like, "Isn't it stupid?" And I was gonna be like, "No, I quite enjoy it."
No, it got me.
So
I thought it was amazing.
I mentioned it,
and he never mentioned score.
I never mentioned score.
All right, let's go on to another. Unless you guys have any final words on that.
No.
All right, we go on now to Scott McCall's question. Scott says, what do you guys think of the evolution of Spider-Man on film so far, from the original Spider-Man trilogy to the, once again, got to write a 15-page paper, from the original Spider-Man trilogy to the 2 Amazing Spider-Man films to what we have now at Marvel, and what would you like to see in Spider-Man Homecoming? Okay, so we've done lots of Homecoming speculation and talked about what we want in that that movie. So what I want to do is start with Eric and just give our general thoughts on the 2 franchises compared to each other and our first impression with that new Spider-Man. Because Eric, I'm curious to hear you talk about the Amazing films, because I don't think we've heard you talk a whole lot about it, except to say that you don't hate 2 like everyone else does.
Yeah, with the Raimi films, I think those have not stood the test of time at all. I think all 3 of those are bad films.
Films?
I think they're bad films.
Wow.
1, I have some nostalgicness with it.
Yeah.
That I can go back and I can enjoy it. 2 is an intolerable bore that doesn't work at all, at least in my opinion.
Wow.
I think 3's, everybody's got the same opinion. 3, I think 3 actually could have been good, and then they mess it up. I like Amazing. Back when it came out, Dan and I actually did it. It's the only video I think the two of us have done on just the 2 of us. We did a review of that. I like Amazing quite a bit. There's certainly a lot of things that are done where it's we just have to do it different than the Raimi films. And like the Lizard's not great, but I think it's good. I think Andrew Garfield's great as both Peter and Spider-Man.
And I think their Gwen Stacy is maybe at least to that date, was maybe the best love interest we'd had in a male-driven superhero film.
I agree. I mean, Pepper Potts is
okay. They're yeah, but she got more to do than Pepper Potts did.
Sure. And then I like Amazing. I think Amazing is my favorite Spider-Man film to date.
Mm-hmm.
It's not perfect. It's or Amazing 2, I mean.
Oh, and you like Amazing 2 even over the first one.
Yeah. I love the costume.
I can't wait to see the comments later.
I really like it. It's got problems. It certainly has problems, but it has less problems than the other 4 Spider-Man films. Likes the Goblin. Like all of the pictures I saw of the Goblin, I thought he looked awful. I like him in that film when I got to see him. I wanted Amazing Spider-Man 3. So yeah, I really liked the Amazing films, and I liked Andrew Garfield. The only problem is, in certain lighting, Andrew Garfield looks 30 because Andrew Garfield is 30.
Yeah.
And
you know what though? I still buy him as a high school kid and then an early college kid before I buy Tom Welling at the start of Smallville.
Yep.
So,
and I'm really hoping Homecoming delivers what they promised, where they're saying that they're going to do like an 80s teen movie with superhero action. I'm a little worried that they seem to keep piling on villains.
Yeah.
But I think maybe somebody will have finally learned the Nolan lesson of pecking order for villains. You can't have 6 villains on the same level. You need to have 1 villains. And if they learn that, I think it could be great. I'm excited for Michael Keaton.
Yeah, well, what you need in movies is...
I'm still not okay with Aunt May.
What you need is a culture.
Mm-hmm.
And, you'd have, like the world always revolves around not just, or in earlier superhero films, always revolved around not just the main character, but the story they're telling. Mm-hmm. And there would be... if you had a world of villains, there'd be a culture. There'd be things going on the street that were unrelated to the rest of the story you're telling that might be roped into that story in some capacity. So, what is your main reservation about Homecoming? Is it just hot Aunt May?
No. If you remember, there's stuff that I don't like that they did in Civil War.
Yeah.
I don't like that he's in an apartment building as opposed to a house. A lot of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like Tom Holland in the role. I'm hoping the movie's not too...
He doesn't look 30 from any angle.
No, that's because he's like 20. I'm hoping there's not... Because I hate that...
I think he's younger than that.
I hate that Star Wars joke in Civil War. I hope it's not full of like millennial jokes of like, these kids don't get these things.
Did it not help when you found out, though, that Tom Holland has never seen that movie?
No. That doesn't help my issue with that joke.
I was just asking.
It's that he says from that really old movie, the year that Force Awakens came out.
Well, yeah,
you wouldn't refer to it like
no,
that.
But the year before, you wouldn't have had a problem with it.
No, I still would have had a problem with it. Star Wars is not a really old movie.
Well, no, it's not. But I can't gauge. You and I had a conversation about this the other day. I can't gauge what kids are like, what kids know and don't know now.
It's true.
Hey, Rasco, you're a kid.
Yeah, I'm a kid.
Do you know what Star Wars is?
Did you deal with people in high school that had no idea what Star Wars was? Or that had never seen Empire?
I don't know if I've ever dealt with somebody like that. I've always been the kid that's been like, how do people not know what this is? Like when a teacher will reference like really old shows and music and stuff like that, like I would know what they're talking about and I would expect it to be common knowledge. Like I've met someone who was like, who's Arnold Schwarzenegger? And I'm like, how do you not know who that is? Like, are you serious?
Okay, that is insane.
I'm like, that's actually crazy. So I don't know. I'm the person that typically at least gets it on some level or is more aware than most people my age.
Rasco, what's your real quick? What's your assessment of the Raimi films versus the Amazing films, if we must compare them?
The Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are okay. So the first one, I as a kid I liked it, but as I got older, I very quickly just stopped caring about the first Spider-Man movie. And I look back at it now, and I still can sit down and watch it because I find such a this weird, charming aspect to the way Sam Raimi directs movies, where it's really corny, and I love it. Spider-Man 2, I love Spider-Man 2. That was one of the most I guess, memorable movie watching experiences I had as a kid. I saw that movie so many times in the theater. I got that little golden pin that was in the shape of a heart with like the Spider-Man webbing on it that they gave out when you went to go see the movie at movie theaters. And
I don't even remember that.
oh yeah, it was just this weird thing that they had. I still have it somewhere. And then Spider-Man 3, I was so excited for that movie. That movie's terrible, but I love watching that movie because I think it's really fun to watch, to make fun of. The Amazing Spider-Man 1, I think, is a serviceable movie, and it's maybe the safest Spider-Man reboot they could have possibly made. That's like the safest they could have played that movie. Amazing Spider-Man 2, I didn't understand the hate that movie got on the internet, but I do, like, at the end of the day, I think that's maybe that's either the second to worst or third from the worst Spider-Man movie, I would say. And then
well, it's only 5 movies.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not so. I mean, it's not great. There's not enough movies to really, get a great feeling for where that places on a quality level, I guess. But and my biggest hope for Spider-Man Homecoming is that, and I like the director that they picked, and I think that they picked him because he's good with working with kids. And so I think that this movie should be there was like an era in like 2010 where they were making Michael Cera comedies about like young adults. And that was kind of like, I think, the second coming of the Breakfast Club type dramedy that happened. And I've heard them compare this movie to Breakfast Club, actually. So I really want this to be like one of those Molly Ringwald era type teen dramedy type movies with Spider-Man in it. And the whole franchise doesn't need to be that, but I would love to like get really, really specific with what the direction that we take each of these new Spider-Man movies. And so like they could do like a college type Animal House comedy like with Spider-Man in it or something somewhere down the road. And that's kind of a weird example, but like I really want this to be very much like a teen movie. And then the Spider-Man stuff is just there because obviously it's a Spider-Man movie as well.
So I've talked about this a lot, of course. I'll do mine super briefly. First of all, as far as Homecoming goes, I'll just say that I agree with both of these guys, and Rasco, and especially on how like versatile Marvel has been in making different kinds of movies in different sorts of genres. Like if you can make a 1970s conspiracy thriller out of Captain America, you should be able to do the Spider-Man Breakfast Club. That's a really good idea. So I don't have a ton of reservations about that yet. I'm very optimistic, and not even cautiously. They've made me happy enough times that I think that movie's probably going to be really good, and I liked him a lot in Civil War, but I'm curious to see what they're doing with the villains, because that's a lot of villains, and that's a lot of like so and so / their actual villain name, which means they get in the costume in that movie, would be my assumption. Yeah. So I saw the first Ring movie again a few months ago for the first time in a long time, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and I do a new rewind on that because I noticed things in it I'd never picked up on before, and it's kind of better than I gave it credit for. From the experience I had, it was really strange, and I won't get into it right now because I don't want to talk about any of the stuff that I want to put in that rewind. But it's still, but we still come a long way, I think. That's a movie that, Eric, even in the theater in 2002 when I saw that, I remember thinking, this is very typically formulaic.
It's the literal cookie cutter superhero film.
And then I instantly in the theater went, wait, we haven't had very many of these yet. Like I had this weird experience where I was like, this is just like all these other superhero movies that we haven't had yet. And then it becomes the blueprint for the formulaic cookie cutter superhero movie. Spider-Man 2, I still love, but again, I feel like we've come a long way, and that that felt sophisticated at the time in a way it doesn't now. Certainly as sophisticated because of what we now have to compare it to, and of course, it's all a matter of perspective. And I'm kind of terrified to go back to it.
I recently watched Spider-Man 2, and I still enjoyed it, so I know it holds up, at least for me.
And then, of course, everyone knows what I think about 3. Peter Parker is relegated to a murderer, and he just gets off on a technicality. And then when you get to the Amazing movies, I think Amazing is a smarter than anybody gives it credit for. And that it nails the teenager, the modern teenager, in a way that we haven't in these movies before. And 2 is wacky and wild and insane, and it's got its issues. But I'm with Eric. I'm with both of you guys. I don't understand the angry backlash about. I still
people act like it's like Batman and Robin.
Yeah. People act like it's worse than Spider-Man 3. I don't, and actually I've heard people say that.
It has a lower Rotten Tomatoes rating than Spider-Man 3.
Does it really? Everyone is entitled to their opinion. I simply do not understand that opinion. Let's go ahead and move on, shall we? Oh, I'm sorry. Unless Rasco had a point.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with everything you were saying. Yeah, like I didn't. Yeah. A disproportionate
response. You know, when Rasco agrees with me, I feel like I must be going on to something. Let's move on now to the optimistic cynic. That's a contradiction.
Cynic?
Yes. And he says, I don't know if this question is interesting enough. Do you think
that is his question? He gets one question. It's, is this question interesting enough?
No, he said, I don't know.
Okay.
That's a statement. I don't know if this question's interesting enough, but do you think that physical media, i.e. Blu-ray or DVD, will ever be completely phased out in favor of streaming? And do you think it should? This is the $6 million question, right?
I think yes. I don't want it to. I like having DVDs. I like having Blu-rays. I think in 50 years, we have no physical media.
I think you're going to have we're going to be the crotchety old men that don't like that people can't come over anymore and look at our shelf and see what we own. But I don't think there's going to necessarily be enough of us as far as collectors go in order to keep the media alive. Like once we're in our 70s, there's just not going to be
DVDs
enough
and
of us.
Blu-rays and all that will just be collector's items at this point.
Yeah. And certainly we phase. Obviously, you have to assume that Blu-ray and DVD eventually get phased out in favor of something else. But the question is, does the something else come, or is that the point where it's all? Now, I don't think this happens with books entirely. I don't think this ever entirely happens with books.
Comics either.
I don't think that's possible. Yeah, anything in a leaflet form, because because it's still a thing where there is a difference in looking at it. In the way you look at it, in the way the media is made, versus if you digitize it. And of course, this is not the case. And video games are already very much on their way from getting completely away from digital media, or from physical media. I think a lot of people I know don't buy physical games. I don't think you buy physical games.
No, I don't buy games digitally either. Really, I'm not a gamer.
Okay. Well, I just knew you had some things on your PS4, and I just assumed that when you get things, you probably download them.
No, I do. I guess still buy the physical discs.
Okay.
When I buy games.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that like I don't collect movies, even though I love movies, and the reason I don't like collect, and what I mean when I don't collect movies is I don't go out and buy movies and then put them all on a shelf. Even though I own a lot of movies, I own them on digital platforms because a lot of these kind of things like iTunes and stuff like that, you have it forever because it's part of the platform of iTunes. And I think like for a lot of people, they want to have that item forever. And if it can just kind of keep getting ported to whatever the next advanced level of technology is, then they'll go for that. So gaming goes that way. So now every console that comes out, you can download like all of your games off of the cloud and stuff like that. So I think some people see it as maybe like a more, fiscally responsible way of buying things now, because if you trust whoever you bought it through, whether that's Amazon or iTunes or something like that, if you trust them that they'll always be around, then you'll continuously have that in a digital format forever, really.
But
that's where to me the naivety comes in. Like you can't be sure of any of that stuff.
Well, and I don't know about buying movies. Do you actually own the movies on iTunes? Because I know you don't. You own no comics digitally.
Right.
The apps on your phones you don't own. You don't actually own. If you update and that app is no longer in the iTunes store, it doesn't reload. you no longer have it.
Yeah. Now, like on Amazon, you of course don't download an actual, I almost said physical copy. You don't actually download the file, but you have access to it on every device. So as long as Amazon never goes under, and I mean, like right now, obviously it's easy to say, oh, Amazon going under, that's absurd. They're like Disney. They're going to rule the world. Never be sure of anything. And what if servers go down? What if...
Or if they just stop carrying that movie that you download digitally? Do you then lose it, or do you still own that physical copy?
That it's not a thing that's happened yet. Like,
okay, well, because I know it happens with comics.
Sure, yeah.
Comics will get pulled, and you've paid for them and have them on your device, and no longer access.
And that's preposterous.
The way that we own like all of our media now, like games right now work where you don't own the game, you just have the right to play the game, and so like the disc now is almost the key in a way, and it like I remember with the Xbox One, and I don't know if you can do this now or if you could or like. If you can do this with the PS4, but there was a point in the Xbox One where you just put the disc in once and you never needed it again. And that was kind of like the obvious, like, yeah, it's literally just a key to have the right to access whatever it is now. And so they're kind of trying to like, they want people to go the digital route, I think, because people are just like willing to like, oh, I'll buy this without thinking about it. Much easier than like going to the store and buying things. It's a lot easier to get people to splurge on like on digital media, I guess. So that's the way.
Obviously, it cuts down on production costs. You don't have to go out and manufacture.
Well, and people care less when you take it away, because there are things that you can have on your PlayStation that now make your PlayStation worth money because it's no longer gettable.
That's a good point too. It's getting complicated. It's turning into a really interesting world, and that's not that's not an easy question to answer. But as far as like, will we ever get to the point where we don't have physical media with that stuff? As far as movies and TV shows and video games, I'm inclined to say yes.
Cyberpunk 2020, here we come.
Rasco, can we please get a live question, please, sir?
Yes, this is from Nathan Snyder. Any thoughts on the upcoming Doctor Strange, Fantastic Beasts, Assassin's Creed, or Rogue One films?
That's just a bunch of movies. Okay. Any of these you guys want to talk about? Feel free to go ahead. And
I've never spoken on Rogue One on the channel. Can I talk about Rogue One?
Yeah, sure.
I don't care. I will see it. I'm not saying I'm against the film. I think it looks and feels like a fan film. It feels like somebody found like a little story that nobody's ever told the story of what goes there. And so a bunch of people got together to tell that story. I think the premise is really fan filmy. I don't know. I don't care about that film. It looks fine. But I didn't think I'd said anything on the channel, but yeah, I'm not excited for that film. I'm not against it. I'm not like, I'm angry that they're making it. I just don't care. And Assassin's Creed has the worst trailer I've ever seen, or the worst song in a trailer I've ever seen.
It's the song. It's not the trailer.
I laughed out loud in theaters the second the song started.
Yeah. Okay, that's totally fair.
It looks like it might be good though.
Yeah, that's the
as long as they don't use Kanye for the soundtrack.
Yeah, if they don't, then that movie doesn't look bad. Just replace the freaking trailer audio, please.
Someone must have done a cut of that trailer, right? Without that song?
Yeah.
I'm getting more interested in Fantastic Beasts every time I see a trailer. It's a thing that is obviously feels a little bit money milky, especially since they're going to make it a trilogy apparently. But doing more stuff in that world and doing a period piece as opposed to, I mean, it's a prequel in the sense that it takes place in the past, but as long as we're not dealing with too many like ancestors of characters that we know and that kind of stuff, and too much like wink, wink, nod, nod stuff. I like the idea of doing a 19th century period piece in the Harry Potter universe. And production values look great, and I'll see anything with Colin Farrell in it. I'm
not super excited for it on like premise or like necessarily anything I've seen in the trailer, but I love the cast. I'll see it based on cast alone.
Yeah.
That guy from Fanboys is in it. I like him.
Well, and I had that a little bit with Rogue One, where I'm like, wow, Forrest Whitaker in a Star Wars movie. I don't know, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's in a movie called Ghost Dog. The Way
Ghost
of the Samurai.
Dog.
and I looked at the back of the DVD, and it was Forrest Whitaker with a samurai sword in a gi.
We have to watch that.
Yeah.
That sounds like blind commentary material to me.
There's a movie called Two-Headed Ghost Shark, and yeah, that's all I can say about it.
Wasn't Ghost Dog a Goosebumps book?
I think it might have been.
That's obviously not an adaptation of that book, but that would be amazing. It's like, well, what we did was we took the R.L. Stine book and we added samurais and Forrest Whitaker as a samurai. That's amazing. Okay,
was everyone saying about Doctor Strange? We all think it looks good.
I don't have anything to say about that at this that I haven't said before.
It looks good. I don't know. I mean.
And I think we talked about that a little bit last show. Oh no! Somebody brought that up on Comic Late Night a couple weeks ago, and we tackled it there. Okay, let's do another round of these. We got a little bit of time left on the clock. And thanks everybody for being here and asking questions. We sure appreciate it. A lot of great questions tonight. Having a lot of fun chatting with you, and I hope you are enjoying being here, whether you are watching right now or you're watching tomorrow or next month. Here we go. Golden Eagle 407 V. Point 1, version 1. Is Geekvolution planning to do any more full-length documentaries like you did with Midwestern Panels, or will you guys branch out and do other genres? Interesting you ask this now, because I've been talking to Eric about this. Just the last few days, I've been kicking around ideas for another possible documentary. The Midwestern Panels is doing really well. It's getting a surprising number of views on the channel. On the channel. It's over 11,000, which is more people than I ever thought would see it. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, it's got me hankering to make another one. Getting nothing but positive comments on that movie, and people are asking me to make another one. I don't have any interest in doing, at least at the moment, unless things were to really change in the industry. You know, like if next year it plummeted, or like half the comic shops in America folded, or like digital comics day and date got cheaper and that affected the market and everything, I would be inclined to immediately get in my car and drive to comic shops again. But I like just going to another region or whatever, I'm not real interested in doing, because even if I found some cool shops, we'd be talking about too much of the same stuff. I don't think I'd have a whole movie. So I've been kicking around other possible ideas, and I don't want to do one until I'm really stoked and excited about a concept. But I'm kicking around maybe doing something with people who own different kinds of large collections of things. And if this idea gets off the ground and I start meeting people and finding some really cool collections to go visit, I might do a movie about different sorts of geeky collections. Anyway, anybody who has any ideas about things that would make sense for me to make a documentary about, feel free to send me a message, because it is this thing I would like to do again in the next 2 or 3 years. We already talked about the Mary Sue thing, Everything Geek, so we're going to skip that one. John Sidney, this is something I've been thinking about, wondering for a while. What makes a character likable and sympathetic, and what makes a character unlikable and unsympathetic, and why can amoral characters work as a main character in a story? I have talked about this ad nauseum. Will yield the floor to either of you guys if either of you guys want to tackle this. But I have kind of a go-to answer I always go to. I say go-to twice.
I don't think there's a formula for what makes a character likable.
Mm-hmm.
There's a distinct kind of character archetype that I like and I find kind of relatable and sympathetic that not everyone does. Like that whole like private detective down on his luck, kind of a slob. I really like characters like that. Not everybody does. I don't think there's a line of, if you do these things, your character is likable. If you do these things, they're not. Even something where you have kind of a mixed character who does good and bad things, that can, there's no, like Star-Lord could just have easily have been an unlikable jerk.
But why isn't he? And why do most people think he's not?
I think in that movie, it's performance. I feel like if you got the wrong person in that movie, he could have come off sleazy and unlikable. Han Solo is the same way.
But it isn't just performance, right? Some of it with that particular character has got to be personal details and,
the stuff with his
and
mom.
background and the tape and the music. And I mean, he does become a somewhat layered character. And you're right. He could come off as completely unlikable, but it's not like Chris Pratt took a script where there was this guy that was a jerk and made us like him.
And then when it comes to amoral characters, I think those work because they're fascinating. And amoral characters usually have some kind of they're the protagonist, but they're often the villain of the piece, or certainly not the hero. Somebody like Dexter, or I would say like Norman Bateman, or
Norman Bates.
No, Patrick Bateman.
Patrick Bateman.
Patrick Bateman is the main character in American Psycho. I'm just naming serial killers now. Fight Club's kind of similar. He's kind of amoral, or at least struggles with his own morality. I think they're just fascinating characters. And I think sometimes your characters don't have to be likable if your movie knows that they're not likable. They just have to be interesting enough to want to follow them. You don't have to root for them.
Rasko, do you have anything to add before I tack on my 2 cents?
I was going to kind of agree with what Eric said at the very beginning of this question, where he said that, he doesn't know if there's like a formula that equals sympathetic character or I guess likable character. There are just certain types of characters that inherently appeal to different people. But I think like what the question really means is like, how do you make sure that your characters don't accidentally, without you intentionally trying to make them like hateable? Like, how do you avoid that? And I don't know like a definitive answer to that, but I can say things. Here's something across the board. Generally, if I don't know why a character would come to the conclusion that they're coming to, and I think that most people would probably sit down and watch what I just watched, and would also be, and would also not be, I guess, or just wouldn't understand why a character made a choice that they made or why they came to a conclusion. I don't like when people act irrational, and I don't feel like the writer is aware that the person's acting irrational.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how often the reason we don't like a character is because we don't understand them? Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about. This person lumped together likable and sympathetic and unlikable and unsympathetic. These are different things, and I think it's important to mention that your character does not have to be likable for me to care what happens or to even to root for them. Mm-hmm. What's important is that I believe that they got to where they got, and I understand why that is. That's why background can be really important. This also sometimes can work even if I don't know their background. When a character is just so believable that you, without consciously thinking about it, buy that they got to the place they are in their life. So what Rasko's saying is you can have a character who acts irrationally, but it has to be an irrational character. And there has to be some reason that you care about what happens to them. That stories are always about a character wanting something and they're trying to get that thing. And whatever kind of character you're telling a story about, whether they're a jerk face or they're someone that you would like to marry tomorrow, the reason you read it is because you're interested to see if they get that thing and like what they learn in their attempt. Actually, whether or not they get that thing is not as important as what you learn about them or what they learn about themselves in the opportunities they have to change in the course of that character arc. But yeah, likable and sympathetic are things that people like to use interchangeably. I think it's really important to understand that those aren't the same thing, and that yes, you can't plug in for a formula.
Yeah, well, I think both. I think Patrick Bateman is a perfect example of a character that's likable but is in no way sympathetic. Yeah. That's but still he is in the sense that you understand how he got to where he got. Like you don't like he's not sympathetic in the sense that you don't condone his actions or you don't like. Also, sympathy and empathy are different things. Mm. That's important too. He's a sympathetic character. He's not an empathetic character. Mm. Sid Part 2 asks, what horror franchise do you think would best work for an R-rated animated feature? Sid Part 2 is always interested in animation and how we don't give it enough credence here in America. My money is on Nightmare on Elm Street, but I would be curious to hear the panel's So we're talking as
thoughts.
a film
a horror franchise as a animated movie.
Oh.
An animated movie. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Not like a TV show or something.
Hellraiser. And
yeah, Hellraiser would work real well.
He already said Nightmare on Elm Street, but that's another good one.
Well, Nightmare on Elm Street would be great in the same way Hellraiser, because there's no budgetary constraints.
Exactly, which is why my mind immediately went to The Cell.
Mm-hmm.
For very similar reasons.
Is that a franchise?
I guess it's not. I guess it's just a movie. Okay, so this is specific, right? I got to pick a movie where there's multiple movies and turn it into an animated feature. Poltergeist. What? Poltergeist, the animated movie.
The Exorcist, the animated film.
I think you could do a really cool, like, stylized Halloween animated movie.
Yeah.
That's kind of like
so
has a very minimalist use of color, kind of like Sin City almost. And you could do like I think that could be really cool actually.
This isn't a franchise; it's one film, but I think Nightbreed would work great as an animated film. That's a Clive Barker film.
I've never seen that. I think I have a copy of that for some reason.
I like it.
I don't know why I own that, but now that you're saying that, I think I have that for some reason. Rasco, we have time for one more question, and let's take it live, sir.
Okay, this is from Cole the Arrow. Do you think the new Power Rangers movie would make a studio greenlight or cancel a Voltron movie?
Well, it depends on if it sells, right?
Yeah, because that's a weird question because we don't know if it would cancel or... I guess it's kind of asking us more, do we think Power Rangers will be good? Because if we think that it would greenlight a Voltron movie, it would only do that if it was good, right?
Well, and if it was successful. I mean, if that movie makes a lot of money, then whoever owns Voltron, I could see immediately jumping. And really, just anybody that has big robots that come together to form a larger robot, you're like, okay, that's the ticket.
We'll see the GoBots.
Big live action. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I kind of wonder. I think if Power Rangers is successful, it might put some speed on a Voltron movie.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't do well. I don't think that stops a Voltron movie from happening. I think they might be like, well, they did it bad. We'll just do it good.
That's a good point. Is Power Rangers necessarily the testing ground for live action robots coming together movie?
So.
I don't think necessarily either. And I feel like I don't know Voltron very well, so tell me if I'm wrong. Especially because Transformers is hugely successful.
But it's not piloted robots.
No, not piloted robots, but that's not going to matter to a studio. It's robots that are huge and are fighting in a city.
Well,
right?
Grim didn't do that great.
Well, that's true, but I'm just saying, I don't think, as long as Transformers is successful, I don't think this stops any studio from potentially greenlighting a giant robot movie just because of Transformers. But let me ask you this. Is Voltron not a thing where the robots coming together is a larger component of what it is than Power Rangers?
Yeah. Well, Voltron is intentionally a show that was created because it's actually Go Lion.
Mm-hmm.
It is a riff on Sentai where it is more mech focused.
Because when I think of Power Rangers, I don't think about Megazoids first. I mean, they're there, but that's always the Deus Ex Machina that ends the episode. I mean, obviously there's exceptions.
And that's what happens in Voltron too, but everything starts giant most of the time.
But it starts giant, yeah. And so that's a thing to keep in mind too, right? Is that like whoever owns Voltron, if they want to make a movie, I don't think they're necessarily even going to be looking that hard at Power Rangers.
They would be looking at things like Pacific Rim and Transformers, and Sony says they're going to make a Robotech movie. That would also be a thing to look at.
Yeah. I don't see that making waves unless the trailer is amazing.
Fingers crossed, Robotech.
Yeah, no, I know that's the thing you like a lot. It's not a thing people know a lot about. No. I feel like maybe we've had this conversation on camera. Yeah. I forget. But no, I'm not saying who cares about Robotech. I guess I am saying that. I mean, like, you do, but are there...
Well, and anime fans don't. Anime fans hate Robotech. I'm not going to go into that now, but there's a reason.
This is maybe premature because we haven't had a trailer yet. I think Power Rangers does marginally at best.
Unless it has an amazing trailer.
Like people are talking about it like the fact that it has a couple of big name actors is going to immediately make it a $100 million opening weekend kind of movie. Now, I don't know what it's opening against. I have a hard time imagining that movie, no matter what it looks like, doing better than 50 or 60.
I think it
which you could do, which is probably making its money back. I mean, I more than make that's good. I'm just saying I don't see it being a phenomenon.
I think it could be if it looks amazing. I don't even know what I would compare it to, but like, I think if it looks really good, people will go see it.
It has to entice basically 3 different audiences, right? To do really well. Mm-hmm. It has to entice those of us that grew up with Power Rangers and want to and are interested in it nostalgically, and it has to entice superhero fans in general. And then it's got to be a movie that 9-year-olds want to go to, or at least 13-year-olds. I mean, they're like all the stuff we're seeing in posters and stuff is already selling that really hard on. It's a teenage movie, and I bet it they kind of play it like. Not this heavy and violent, but I bet all the advertising is going to play it like Chronicle Power Rangers. It's kind of the sense I get.
That'd be kind of cool.
That could be cool. I mean, okay, so I think I just know too much about the script writing process of this movie at this point, because I know that it's been rewritten by like 6 different people. And that it's kind of been mishmashed together, because even Max Landis said that like he's still like credited as one of the main writers, even though he was like the first guy to even try. And so like his script is like way far gone, but he's still like.
Well, that's not actually what Max Landis said. He said he was brought in with like 4 other people. They all wrote separate drafts of a film, unrelated to each other, and all of those people are being credited on this script.
I knew,
but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a hodgepodge or a clusterfish. Like, movies with a bazillion writing credits have been good before.
It's true.
It's possible. Let's not write it off because of that. Is all I'm saying.
This is one thing.
That is a weird way to write a script.
Max Landis did say this.
Sorry, go ahead, Rasco.
He did say that literally he left the project when someone was like, "Why are you trying?" Like someone, I don't know who, but it was someone from the studio was like, "Why are you trying so hard?" And he was like, "What?" And they're like, "Why are you putting so much effort into this movie?" And he's just like, and then he just kind of left the project after that, because apparently he was giving it his all. And they were just like, "I don't understand why all this is so important to you, Max."
And he's put up a couple of pages from his script, and they're great. They're really fun.
That sucks, because he sounds like exactly the right person to do that movie.
He's exactly the right age.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's actually right up his alley.
If it's not too heavy, like he should, like, taking the project seriously. Yes, of course, put your all into it and make a really cool, character-driven movie with a lot of great detail with mythology and stuff. But you don't want it to be too violent or you got to be 20 years old to appreciate this movie.
No, I've seen the pages he put up in the script. It was not that.
It wasn't that.
No, it was super fun.
Because the posters we've got so far look like it could go either way. It could take itself too seriously, or it could be a movie that's really tongue-in-cheek about it, but the characters in the film, of course, are playing it completely straight. And that's what I'm hoping it is. But now I want to see the whole script. Well, folks, we are all out of time. That's going to be it for us tonight. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed tonight's edition of the Multi-Topic Extravaganza. We'll be with you again next Sunday night at the same time, 8 p.m. Central, for the penultimate episode of this year's Multi-Topic Extravaganza. 2 weeks after that, we'll be back to regular Geeks Not Nerds Lives, where we will be taking your questions and doing entire episodes on them, as well as bringing back the rants. And as you can tell, Eric always has many things to complain about, so I'm looking forward to finally hearing some of his rants on Geeks Not Nerds. As far as I know, Lo and I are still doing Comic Late Night tomorrow night. She has been somewhat intermittent the last few weeks, so I got to make sure that she is available. But regardless, since it's been 2 weeks, I will probably do a show on my own if she's not able to make it. But as of right now, I think she's good. So we will see you again tomorrow night if you're able to make that show, talking about brand new comics from the last 2 weeks at 10 p.m. Central Time. Comic Late Night. Tell your friends. Hope to see you there. And tomorrow, got a brand new episode of Superhero Rewind for you. That's going to come up tomorrow in the morning, late morning, early afternoon. So look forward to that, and lots more fun stuff coming your way here on Geekvolution. I am Captain Logan. This was
Eric,
Brown Coat Eric, and Jackson Rasco.
Peace out.
And I am always, as Captain Logan, saying good night. Good night.